The next letter we're going to be doing um, is the letter G, and this makes two sounds, G and J. So G, J. So before we jump right into doing this, I just want to point out that this has the same first motion as the letter A, but instead of going right into a connector stroke, we actually do the same motion we did for the letter A, but then we come down and do a backwards basement loop stroke and cross at the baseline and add the connector. So before we do the whole thing, we're just going to practice this backwards basement loop stroke on page 11A of your practice sheets. So we've already, or you should have already done um, the uphill attic stroke when you were right before you practiced the letter D. So the top two of these should be done. Now we're going to move down here to the backwards basement loop. So we begin the midline and go straight down into the basement, make a slender loop backwards, meaning the opposite way we read and write, going in the direction from which we started, and continue back up to the baseline. Close the loop at the point where you cross the baseline and finish with a connector. So that's really important that you do that. So when you cross, sometimes people want to cross too low or they'll cross too high. So make sure when you cross, you're crossing at the same point that you crossed when you went over the baseline the first time. Okay, again, I'm going to repeat the instructions. Begin on the midline and go straight down into the basement. Make a slender loop backwards, going in the direction from which we started, and continue to the baseline. Close the loop at the point where you cross the baseline and finish with a connector. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate that a little more quickly this time. All right, so that's the backwards basement loop, which is the second part of the letter G. So then to practice the letter G, you're going to turn to page 12A. So we're going to start on the baseline here, and we're going to make a short uphill stroke up and over to 2 and stop without lifting the pencil. We're going to make a clock face, stopping at 2. Now add a backwards basement loop and a connector. Okay, again, we're going to start on the baseline and make a short uphill stroke up and over to 2. Stop without lifting the pencil, make a clock face, stopping at 2, and then now we're going to add a backwards basement loop and a connector. So you're going to go ahead and do the first line, tracing all of these, including these dotted ones at the end, and then you're going to go ahead and do your own G's on the second line. So again, you're going to be resting on the baseline for the starting point and also the clock face. But then notice we're going down into the basement for the backwards basement loop, and then we're finishing with a connector.